All right, everybody, let's get started. I'm Mimi Rossi, and I'll be your presenter. I want to congratulate you for all joining me today. It's really easy to decide to do something, and it's another thing to actually do it. So I'm really happy you're here. So, as you might have guessed, I wrote a book called Growing Up for Grown-Ups, A Dozen Ways to a More Financially Stable You. And this webinar is based on one of the chapters, Get Organized, Budget Time for Budgeting. You all should have a copy of the budget spreadsheet I emailed to you, and if not, you can download it from the website afterwards at growingupforgrownups.com. And I'll have it up on the screen and we'll go over each section. So don't get too caught up on taking notes or anything like that. If you miss something, the webinar will be available afterwards on demand. So let me get some technical stuff out of the way. Hopefully you can all see the control panel on your screen. And I want you to notice a couple of sections. One is the little blue hand in the control panel. I'm probably going to ask you a couple of questions and have you answer by raising your hand. And you just click on that little hand and it'll give the answer. And you click on it a second time, it takes the hand down. Also notice on the screen where you can type in questions. It's down more towards the bottom. And I want to keep this within 30 minutes, so I won't be answering any questions until the end, but feel free to type them in anytime because if you're like me, you might forget. So, alrighty, and also to let you know, you're all muted, so don't worry about any background noise. So keep it simple isn't a new phrase, but it seems to be one that people just can't do. I'm basically a curious and creative person always looking for answers and trying to solve puzzles. But lots of times the people giving the answers didn't speak my language and I struggled. And I struggled and I pushed through until I found some answers. And I discovered that the answers were not that hard. It was the way they were conveyed to me that made them seem so hard. So I set out to create simple, straightforward information that us regular Joes could understand and use by keeping it simple. So anyone can tell you, or maybe you already know, that living paycheck to paycheck sucks and spending everything you make with nothing left over until the next paycheck. And I used to do that, and I never felt good about it. It was scary, and quite frankly, I wanted better for myself. So, long story short, I figured out how to stop doing that by making a budget, and I hope that what we go over today helps you do the same. Now, here we go with the testing that raising your hand thing. Let me see a show of hands if you're living paycheck to paycheck. Remember, just click on the little hand. There you go. Okay, about 30% of you. And go ahead and click it to put it back down. Thank you. Alrighty, so it's sad to say that 1 out of 3 Americans is one paycheck away from being homeless. And unfortunately, I was one of those people. Of course, I have family and friends I would crash with if it came to that, but I never wanted it to come to that. And that's why you need to have at least 3 months of expenses stashed away in case something happens for emergencies. And once you get that going, it's really not that hard. It's just a matter of controlling your money instead of it controlling you. So let's see. How many of you have at least 3 months of expenses saved? Raise your hand. Perfect. Okay. More than I thought. Glad to hear it. Go ahead and put your hands down. Okay, so the benefit of a budget is simple. It gives you peace of mind. It's going to help you take control and be prepared for whatever comes your way. A budget can help you monitor your fixed monthly bills and living expenses and also help you prepare for the unexpected, like car repairs or a leaky roof or even fun stuff like an unplanned vacation or something. And, I learned the hard way. I went through it. I basically grew up not knowing anything about money except how to spend it. And I didn't know what it felt like to be financially secure, and I didn't even know that was an option for me. When I entered the workforce, I did what everyone around me did, and I spent my money. And then I got a credit card, and I spent more money than I made. And I got tired of being broke all the time. So I did some research, and I learned how to create a budget. I was able to get out of debt, and with the money I saved, started investing. And it made a huge difference in my life, and that's why I'm here. I want to share it with other people like me that could benefit. Now, after following my budget, I was able to pay off debt and create a healthy savings account. I was able to buy a couple of rental properties and create passive income. I also own stock in a few of America's largest companies, all from creating a budget. So the bottom line is this, it's your decision. If you're tired of living paycheck to paycheck and being broke all the time, or even if you're not broke all the time, and you just want to create a better future for you and your family or create security, it's just a great way to start. Just simply budget. And the slideshow is a little slow. There we go. All right, on to the next one. So here's 4 simple things that needs to be done. And the first thing you need to do is calculate net income. This is the income that goes in your pocket after you pay taxes and Uncle Sam takes his piece. And then you need to list your expenses. And when you, for example, you list home, and then next you're going to have to break it down into subcategories. Like under home, you're going to have rent or mortgage. You're going to have insurance or taxes or whatever you're going to have under your home, etc. And lastly, we're going to add in a budget goal. And your goal is your motivation. It's why you're doing this. So let's get started. Alrighty, so like I mentioned, the first thing you need to do is add up your income, what comes in. A good way to start is by gathering the last 3 months of your paychecks or income and adding them up. Divide them by 3 so you get a nice little average, and you can plug those into the projected section, which we'll look at when we have the spreadsheet up. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to gather up our expenses. So again, you can gather up 3 months of receipts, or you can just estimate how much you think you spent, and later on you can replace the estimates with the real numbers. And one thing I want you guys to keep in mind is that this is a living document. It's always evolving, and you can adjust it as you go. It's just when you start, you really need to keep track by just guessing because you don't know yet. And when you get started and do it, month after month, you'll get a real number that you can use. Alrighty, so after you figure out income and expenses, you'll need to decide on a goal. Do you want to pay off credit cards? Do you want to go on a fun vacation? Or do you want to buy a new car, start savings? Whatever you want. This is your goal, your motivation. So the reason why you want to have this in the back of your mind is if you go shopping and you start to spend out of your budget, maybe you see a pair of shoes you like or something, you stop and you think, you know what, I'd rather go on vacation to Hawaii next year, so I'm not going to buy that. So basically, it's your motivation, what you can think of in the back of your head so you don't overspend or go out of your budget. So let's do another little fun interaction thing and see a show of hands of those that want to get out of debt. And keep in mind, I'm going to ask you 3 things, and feel free to raise your hand for each one. So how many people want to get out of debt? Okay, about 50%. And how many of those want to have a savings cushion? All right, most of you. And how about wanting to save for a big ticket item like a car or a house or something like that? Perfect. All right, that's about all of you. All right, we're going to move on here. All right, so now we've got the budget spreadsheet. And like I said, you don't have to have it in front of you. You can watch this again. You can just follow along up here on the screen. So here's the top part of the budget. And like I mentioned a moment ago, we're going to start by calculating, let me get my little cursor over here. We're going to start by calculating our monthly income in section 2. So as you can see, there's a few different types of income, and you got to count in bonuses, interest, dividends, gifts, and anything else. Like if your Aunt Martha gives you $100 for your birthday, that's still income. And you want to divide it by 12, and that'll give you a monthly number. So at the top here, I want to show you how I have the monthly expenses in gray. The reason why it's in gray is I'm using an example from my book. So this is a number you're going to plug in at the end. So that's why it's in gray. And there's 3 columns to fill out. There's projected, there's actual, and then there's the plus and minus. The projected is where we put our average or our estimate, whichever you're going to use to begin budgeting. And you're going to begin your month each time with projected. And then secondly, at the end of the month, when you add everything up, you're going to put in the actual column. And the plus and minus column just shows you the difference, how much you're off, so you can make the adjustment the next month. So let's just look at the salary. So let's say that you projected you'd make 54.95.68, and when you at the end of the month you total it all up, you made a little bit more. You made 55.33. So that's a difference of 37.32. So it's not set in stone. It's a living document to show you that maybe next month you might use this number here and then see what it's off. So until you're totally comfortable with budgeting, you're going to want to do this every month. And the goal here is to have the balance zero out, to have every penny accounted for. Your income should match your expenses. So the next thing to do is list the expenses. And we have the main expenses, which is home and utilities and food in this section. And then as you see, we break down each one further into subcategories. So under home, you've got rent or mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, whatever you need to put in here for your home. Now, for example, you're going to say taxes. Well, taxes are normally paid for the year. So whatever your yearly sum is, you're going to take it and divide it by 12 to get a monthly number. And you want to, let's see, for example, let's go down to utilities here. Now, this is something that usually changes from month to month. I'm going to just shrink my little control panel. So let's just say that you thought that the gas bill was going to be $10 and the bill comes and it's $9. So you have an extra dollar left over. But electric you underestimated, so you have minus. And this column, like again I said, is just to show you how much you're off, just to help you in the future make the projected a little more accurate. So if we go down to food, you see how food is broken out into groceries and eating out and snacks. Groceries is pretty self-explanatory, but eating out is not going to restaurants, any planned trips you have. It's more for when you grab a latte on the way to work, or Taco Bell, or a snack at the gas station, or something like that. And I'll show you where we're going to put restaurants a little bit later. Now going forward, we're just going to work with the projected column. I think you get what actual and the plus and minus column is. So let's see, on this page we have auto, transportation, and health and medical. So if you have a car payment or a lease, obviously it would go here. You can guess in the beginning how much gas you spend. Maintenance, let's say you buy a set of tires, and you just break that down into 12, because next year when you get used to doing this, you're going to know that, hey, you know what, my car cost me $2,500 in repairs, and then you'll put that number, and that way you won't have any surprises. You'll always have that available for any repairs. Under health and medical, let me go back up here. So if you don't live in an area with good this is actually taxis, tolls, and subways, and this is for people that have good transportation other than your own vehicle. So you'd put that in there, registration, etc. Okay, skipping down to health and medical. If you have insurance, you would list your payment here. And if your employer pays your insurance, then you wouldn't have a monthly payment, so you'd skip through that. But you still might have unreimbursed expenses such as going to the chiropractor or something like that and your insurance doesn't pay for it, then that's where you'd put it. Copays and prescriptions, pretty self-explanatory. And then if you're lucky enough to get a massage once a month or join a gym or something like that, you would put that there as well. Right. All right, now here's everyone's favorite, the debt payments. And soon to be everyone's favorite, investment and savings. So under debt payments, you don't have to list every credit card unless you want to. But usually you can just total the payments. For example, if you have a couple of Visas, a couple of MasterCards, and maybe American Express, and you pay $100 each month, you can just put in the total amount, which would be 500. Student loans, if you have them, other loans, let's say you borrow some money from Uncle Bob to pay for an unexpected car repair that you didn't budget for, you could put that in there. And obviously you can use this column for, anything that doesn't fall in the other categories. So moving on to investment and savings. Remember, these are expenses, not income. So you would still list them right here under expenses. An exception here is the 401k. Usually it's automatically deducted from your paycheck, so it's already deducted from your income. But you might list your IRA here if you have rolled it over. And stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc. if you contribute monthly. Or even if you contribute once a year. You want to take that yearly amount and divide it into 12 so that you can have your monthly budget. Life insurance, obviously. Okay. Okay, so here we have personal and entertainment. Now, clothing is pretty straightforward, but let's talk about grooming. Because think about it, if you get your hair cut every other month, at say 60 bucks a pop, or you get a pedi mani or some manly grooming thing at 40 bucks a pop, little miscellaneous things, that's $1,200 a year. So it really adds up, and that's why you need to keep a budget and keep track of these expenses. Family obligations. Let's say you have a parent in assisted living home and you and your brothers and sisters contribute, this is where that would go. And like, for example, me, I take my grandma out every weekend and we'll go out to eat, to a movie, and it just really adds up. So I put that under family obligations. Obligations. If you're divorced, you would just list your alimony, have kids. You guys know all about babysitting and daycare. That's a big number. And moving down here to entertainment. Okay, well, movies and all that is pretty self-explanatory, but here's where you put restaurants and subscriptions and memberships. Even AAA. I think my AAA is like $46 a month, so I would divide that by 12 and put that here in the monthly. Break it down to the monthly number. And hobbies. And pay close attention to this entertainment section because this is optional. This is where you can cut back. If you add up your expenses at the end of the month and you spent more than you made, well, this is where you're going to want to cut back. Alrighty, now we're at the last part of our budget, the miscellaneous section where you put anything that doesn't fall into the other categories. If you if you go to the dry cleaner, and here's the part to pay attention to: toiletries and household products. Normally people lump that into groceries and that's fine, but if you really want to pay attention to what you're spending, you can look at your receipts and break them out further, and then you can also see where you might need to cut back. And gifts and donations, lots of people don't budget in gifts, but you know what, your friends have birthdays, your family has birthdays, and you're always giving. And where does that money come from? It comes out of your savings? Well, it doesn't have to. You can budget for it. So the last part here is the goal fund. And let's say you want to save for a vacation and it's going to be $2,500 you need to save within a year. You take the 2,500, you divide it by 12, and you get your number, your monthly number, which goes right here. So this is a total of the whole projected column. And we take that and we're going to go put it to the top of the spreadsheet. So there's your budget goal, there's your income, there's your monthly expenses, and there's a balance here. So we want this to zero out. And in this example, it doesn't, and we're going to go over that. Let's see. So this is a big important thing here because it's going to give you your motivation, like I said earlier. And you want to think about saving for a vacation, paying off debt, emergency fund, buy a new car, whatever your goal is. You want to factor it into your monthly budget. All right, now let's take a closer look at this over here. If you remember, I said actually a couple times during this presentation that the totals should zero out. In other words, every penny should be accounted for, and your income should match your expenses. So here we have a positive balance of about 126 bucks. That means you have an extra $126 doing nothing. So you need to find a place for it. So if you have money left over after you total everything up, that's great. You can find a place for it by either paying down debt, add it to your savings account, or if all those areas are healthy, you can use it towards your budget goal to get there sooner. Now, on the other hand, if you have a negative balance at the end, like I did when I first made my budget, you need to go back into your budget and see where you can cut back. And don't forget to look at that entertainment section. Or you can supplement your income somehow. When I had that big wake up call of my negative balance, I went and got a part time job until I could pay down some of my debt to bring my balance to zero. And I just want you all to remember this is a living budget, meaning you can change it as you go. And definitely you should do it at least one a month for 3 months until the numbers make sense and you're comfortable with the process. The whole reason to create this budget is to just make your life simpler and take control of your money and live the life you dream. It might seem a little unnatural at first, but everything new does. It's not that hard, it's just a matter of making it a habit. Okay, so let's recap. Now you should know how to gather and figure out the amounts for income and expenses, how to create a simple budget, which will help you get control of your cash, and how to create realistic savings goals. All right. Now, let's see. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, this is based on one of the chapters of my book, Growing Up for Grown-Ups, A Dozen Ways to a More Financially Stable You. And the chapter is called Get Organized, Budget Time for Budgeting. So if you'd like to learn more about how to build a strong financial foundation, the book sells for about 10 bucks on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and a few other outlets. And of course, I'm going to invite you to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. And now we're going to open up for questions. So if you haven't already typed in a question, please do so. I'm looking over here now. Anyone have questions? All right, one of the questions, it says, can I plan for more than one goal at a time? And the answer is yes and no. One of the things you want to do is you want to focus on one goal at a time until you get comfortable with the process. If you have enough money to budget for more than one goal and you are comfortable with the process, then sure, you can go ahead and do that. But in the beginning, I recommend that you pick one at a time. And let's just say that you reach it within 3 months and it doesn't take you a whole year. Well, then the fourth month you can start planning for another budget goal. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I'm gonna count to 10 in case somebody's a slow typer. Alrighty, well, let's move on. Okay. All right, so this is one of my favorite quotes. If you'd like to say it with me, when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So, meaning if you just keep throwing money at your bills and all that, you're never going to get ahead. It's better to plan out where your money goes, and then you can plan where you want it to go, and that's the best scenario. And I want to thank you all for joining me. This concludes Control Your Cash Simply Budget. It's easy to decide to do something, and it's another thing to actually do it. And this webinar will be available on demand in just a little bit. I got to figure out how to upload it. So if you missed anything, feel free to watch it again, log on maybe tomorrow. And please, if you found it helpful, I'd appreciate your feedback. All right, take care.